Be me. Hey, folks. Quick introductions. So I'm Ishan. I'm the founder of Growth. We're a B2B SaaS marketing agency. We do ads and SEO for our clients. We just turned 2 years old. So this is our first live after that. And I have with me Sudhama. Interestingly, Sudhama, like the one thing that I don't know if you know this, that I have associated with you, right, is the fact that the development speeds at your company are insane. I remember like we would talk about, hey, so like this is one feature because the product that you've built is something I really care about. So it was like, hey, we've built this feature, or this is something we need, or could you make this small tweak? And you would expect it to be done in a week, and you would reply in 7 minutes with, hey, it's done. Like it's unreal. So yeah, I have Sudhama with me. I'll let you introduce yourself. Yeah.
Awesome. Yeah, thanks so much. And congrats on the 2 years, Ishan and team. So that's really awesome. Great being associated with you guys as well. And yeah, I mean, that's something, so glad you kind of mentioned that as well, because that's something we really push for and thrive for, like, just the speed of execution. Our company is also called like Hyper Speed Labs for a reason. But with that said, just to give a brief intro, I mean, I'm a tech founder. Done my master's in computer science from NYU and worked in the US in New York for 6 years. So for like 5 years at Goldman Sachs in New York, 1 year at net tech startup. Moved back to India 2013. Did a music festival startup. That was fun. Did that for a while. It was a cool business, right? But wanted to
I
obviously
can
create more
imagine.
impact. Was that?
I can imagine. Yeah, like
Yeah, really fun. Got invited to Tomorrowland on a business class with VIP tickets and all that. But eventually got pulled into solving scheduling problems back in the day with another app called Check and Call. It was designed to be like more a peer-to-peer scheduling app, and that's where our journey began. 2000, like with another app called Check and Call, which I mentioned. 2019, eventually got pull deeper into the calendar and scheduling space, where eventually we build like a superhuman for calendar. Basically, superhuman is this very keyboard friendly, sort of premium like email experience, and we were building an equivalent calendar kind of an experience with quite a few calendly like features, right?
yeah.
And over a period of time, like, of course, we launched it. We've been getting some like amazing feedback on that product, and people really loved it. But along the way, what started to happen is, because of some of these scheduling features, we started getting companies reaching out to us, right, for different problems they were trying to solve. And I vividly remember, like, one of them like reached out, and we knew each other, and they were like, hey, Sudhama, do you guys solve for this round robin scheduling that we want to do?
Yeah.
We have a sales team, and then we are really trying to convert these
Oh
sort of.
yeah, I remember this so well. So I think I was also one of the folks who sort of reached out to you and said that, hey, the calendar is great. Love the shortcuts, love how sort of amazing and fast it we can use it, but like immediate ROI, like a lot of our clients need this solution. Can you just sort of build parts of it? Like because you already had a lot of the pieces when at least when I spoke with you.
Yeah,
So yeah.
exactly. And so that pulled us more to solving for, sort of the inbound marketing slash sales workflows, outbound sales, and customer success teams, right? Because
Yeah.
we realized that that's where, like, we can really create a lot more value as well. And yeah, that's how we are where we are. And
Oh yeah, and just to sort of set some context, right? So why I reached out and literally asked for a new product pipeline altogether, right? Because that's not a normal customer support sort of ask, right? So I am I am also the sole salesperson at Spear Growth, right? And it's not fun, right? Like for example, like when the right people join the calls, it's amazing. Like I have a blast. I have an absolute blast when the right people join. It's a great conversation. And for example, if let's say the wrong a company that isn't a good fit for Spear Growth, if they've joined, it just becomes into that, hey, let's just do consulting for you. I'll try and help you as much as possible. Right? That's one scenario. Other scenario is this, they just don't show up. Like, so there's like all of these slots in my calendar that's blocked out. I cannot plan to do anything else at that point of time, and just no one's showing up, and it's just very like, because before a call I pump myself up with energy, and then it's just very frustrating that it has nowhere to go.
It's
But
like
yeah,
100
like
to
that
0.
was, yeah.
It's like 100 to 0 in like 6 seconds.
Yeah, like, okay, like I'm energetic, and it's been 3 minutes, no one's joined. 4 minutes, no one joined. I'm like, okay, no one's gonna join, right? So that's a problem that I think in most companies, I think SDRs do face that,
Yeah,
right?
absolutely.
Specifically in the B2B SaaS space, where that's the kind of companies we work with, right? Where sort of it's a sales assisted model where someone schedules a demo. Uh, so yeah, like they don't really like, even SDRs I think would not really enjoy having a bunch of junk leads, and so there's also this entire problem of the sales and marketing folks not getting along. And as both, I agree with both the sides. Right?
Yeah,
So yeah, completely understand that side.
there's so much that and it's always the case, right? Hey, we got you the leads, and like now you're not doing nothing about it. And so that's one thing. And then the other side, the sales manager or like the head of revenue and so on will be like super pissed that they are, like very sort of like competent resources are being spent on
Yeah.
like useless leads, right? And if you take it like step back to the funnel a little bit, like essentially, so I know people will be aware of it, but just to bring that context in, like you spend ads like and a lot of money sometimes on ads to bring people in onto your landing page, onto your website, and then say, hey, schedule a demo. Now there's a couple of approaches possible, right? And but the most common one we see is that you leave the floodgates open. So basically you'll say, hey, I want as many leads as possible. That sometimes suits the needs of, let's say, marketing. I hope there's not too many marketing people going to hate me after this, but you'll say, okay, like you want your ads to perform well, so you bring in the leads, right? Somebody fills the form, it goes into a CRM, and now it's on to somebody to call, first of all, notice, right? Because based on the lead, sometimes you have categorization, and I'll talk about this in a bit, like the deeper problem is here, right? But you have, let's say, someone eventually realize that the lead has come in, and then try to qualify the lead. And qualification means you looked up the LinkedIn profile, you look up the company revenues, all that kind of stuff, right? And you're doing this while you could probably be prospecting, you could probably be like closing more deals, or at least taking them further down the pipeline, right? And now you go back after a few hours, try to contact the lead. Now I was sharing this is part of the title as well, which is the odds of contacting a lead if contacted within the first 5 minutes, um, right, drops 100x if contacted in the first, like in 30 minutes, for example, right? Which
How
means it
many?
becomes 100x.
What percentage or multiple?
So it, like if you don't contact the lead within 5 minutes, it becomes 100x harder if you contact them like 30 minutes later. So this is like a research by MIT and Kellogg's, right? Which basically, and we've seen that companies literally tell us that I mean, we are trying to reach leads from 2021, right? Partly because of this kind of a broken funnel. Now that's a lose-lose situation, because on the one front, right, you've taken much more time to respond to the lead, which means you could potentially lose them to another competitor, for example. On the other front, you spend like an expensive resource to manually qualify leads where they could be doing other things to drive the business, right? And that's a big challenge. And then the third mistake companies make is that when they have too many form fields, they'll end up also having drop-offs related to that. Now you try to understand like why do people like do this. And what we found, and even the researchers found, is that there are a few different situations, right? One, companies, typically what we hear is that companies want to do more research before they reach back, which is understandable. The other is sometimes they don't even have the system in place to really capture the lead in the way they should. they may not have a CRM integration, they may not have the rules to like prioritize the lead, assign it to the right person, all that kind of stuff, right? And that's where the whole cascading rolling effect of this really happens, where you miss out on a lot of good leads and potentially a lot of revenue, right? So that's where all of this starts, and that's what we basically solve for in Track as well.
Awesome. So just to sort of recap, right? So sales SDRs don't like it because, well, it's yeah. I don't want to recall that, right? So SDRs don't like it. Marketing, the person sort of running maybe any marketing channel, they don't really like it because their targets could be SQLs, and then there's a drop off after a call scheduled. They are not able to hit their targets for the same reasons. The marketing managers don't like it, the sales managers don't like it. You explained that. The person scheduling a demo, that person does not enjoy it as much because I am doing my research, and I'm trying to compare between companies right now. So I shouldn't have to sort of wait for a week to just be able to get on the first calls. If I could just sort of block out like 4 hours in my day and just do everything, that would be amazing. But yeah, like just not knowing, yeah, like so it's just not a good experience for anyone at all,
Yeah,
right?
and
And
the
yeah,
I just want to
no,
add one like couple of things, which is like, apart from all of this logistics like nightmare, right? There's a revenue impact.
yeah.
So first of all, your CAC, your cost of acquisition goes up because you're obviously converting fewer leads, right? Through this process, there's too much manual work involved. Your TAT, your TA, or like turnaround time to the first demo call, that goes up, and obviously missed revenue, right? So if you're thinking as a like from a revenue perspective, that's what the head of revenues and CROs that we talk to care about, right? Like they're like, hey, this is impacting the funnel, it's really making things inefficient for us, and that's the first thing they want to fix.
Oh yeah, definitely. And I think so. Okay, great. So this is a problem that this is something that no one likes, right? And the solution that you'll discuss is something that I think we've when we've implemented, we've seen, let's say, and again, I'm talking as a marketer right now because we usually implement this for a lot of our performance marketing clients, right? So we've seen, let's say, a 20 to 40% increase in just the lead volumes, or for example, or a reduction in cost per SQL, right? Because of multiple reasons, because of the reduction in drop-offs. Like that's like the biggest one. But also we just have more data now so that we know that, hey, what was a good demo versus a bad demo. And then there's another point that, hey, what's the then okay, who became an SQL or SAL or whatever you want to sort of call it in the middle, right? So there's another data point which sort of is closer to the platform, which means it's easier for us to sort of impact that number, which means we can make more changes faster for a shorter feedback. So that's just from a performance marketing perspective. I love the solution. So yeah, like maybe please take it away.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I completely agree with you, and it is kind of helping, automate some of that, as we said, right? Like basically helping you get that higher quality SQL. Um, Another thing you hinted at the very beginning was the frustration of a bad call, right? Either it not happening because it wasn't really a qualified lead to begin with, right? Or it was they attended the call and then you realize they're not qualified. So you're just wasting. Like this creates a lot of burnout over time, right? If like for the sales team also, where they're just speaking to leads endlessly, and then ultimately the number increases, but there's nothing to show for it, right? Like so when marketing and sales are talking to each other, I think one of the things we are actually experiencing, and we with some of these companies, like literally we are working very closely, pretty much we're in touch whenever, like on almost a daily basis sometimes, like whenever they need. But we've seen like now we are interacting both with marketing and sales, and we definitely experience that their relationship has increased and like become better, uh, because one of the other things that we do on Track is that we give visibility, like cross visibility. So when it comes to like the analytics, for example, what we realized and the feedback we got was that cross visibility was like, for them to have that sort of common ground, they needed to be some cross visibility. So that's what Track also does, which is to give shared insights in that sense.
Can we just backtrack a bit and just can you walk us through the experience or the new flow that you think that we're discussing right now that has all of these benefits? Uh, from a user perspective, they've just landed on a website, they want a demo. What happens there?
Sure. So, now, as you said, right, like somebody lands on a website, you have a schedule a demo, talk to sales, let's talk kind of a form. Now, this form can be created on track, or let's say you have a HubSpot form, we can work with that as well. So essentially, Track integrates with HubSpot, Salesforce, Zoho, and Lead Squared, and so on. So you can create the form in Track. When you create the form, right, you will associate it with let's say certain routing rules, right? These routing rules start with ownership. So for example, again, one more challenge that most companies want to handle is that, let's say a lead comes in, we've already interacted with this lead or account, right, which means the company, like someone else from the company. So there's a lead owner, or there's a contact owner, or there's an account owner for that particular lead that's come in. You want to make sure that the same person talks to this lead or contact again, right? So that's the number one provision you want to make, which Track supports. So you can set that as one of the rules. Then you set additional rules for like routing to your sales team. Now, your sales team, you obviously have multiple people probably taking calls. That's when Track really has an advantage. When you have a few sales folks, obviously, you can have like even one or two people handling it. But you can say that in round robin fashion, you want to book a call, with different people in the team as and when anyone's available. So that's one. And the other thing you can do is you can define criteria. Now, there's two ways to define criteria. One is based on the form fields, right, which you create in Track, or for whatever you have already. So you can say, like, let's say I have like a name, email, and I might ask, let's say, company size as a form field. So if you have those fields, you can set criteria and Track saying if the company size is, let's say, between like less than 10 people, I might just show them like a case study, or I might show a thank you message saying, hey, this is a bit early for us, but we'll get back to you once you're at maybe over 25 employees, or have a look at this case study of how this company scaled up, for example, right? But you may say there's more than 100 employees. Okay, show them a scheduling page, let them book a call with you immediately. So that's one possibility, right? But one of the things you may want to do is you don't want to show too many form fields. So one of the things you can do on Track is that you can say, I don't want to show an employee size field, but can you help figure that out based on the name and email, and then apply similar rules. So that's called sort of automated qualification in that sense, without showing form fields. So you're showing less form fields and increase, like reducing the chances of drop-offs on the form itself. So once that happens, you can define who the call should go to. Track also supports like region-based routing. So for example, you have a global team, you can define the rules that for North America,
Understood.
somebody else should take a call, and so on and so forth.
Yeah, just to sort of summarize, right, from a user perspective, right? So one, as a user, I sort of go there and I have lesser form fills to fill. So obviously, who doesn't like lesser work? So that sort of increases our conversion rates. The form fields that I personally sort of recommend keeping, or the ones that I like keeping, are, one is going to be your first name. I usually remove the last name. There's going to be your company email ID, which means that and again, you can sort of have a debate on this, but then I prefer having the company email ID, which means you can get the company website and information about those things from the form itself. So you don't need to ask about the company and anything else. Then we ask a qualifier question. Right? The qualifier question, for example, for us, happened to be the number of people in your marketing team. For example, we had tested out the number of people in the like the usual ones, right? The company size, revenue, all of that. So remember that your ICP may say that that's your ICP, That's your qualifier, that's who your ICP is. You may have to test a couple of different fields to get to what works for you. That's the third form sort of field. The fourth one that I like having is something that sort of helps me categorize. And this may or may not sort of work for many companies, but for example, for us, I would take a SEO call very different from when someone wants to speak with me for ads. So I sort of have a sort of a segmentation sort of field. And the fifth field that you may or may not have is how did you hear about us, right? Which sort of helps with the attribution that does not work, right? Specifically, if you're running a lot of demand gen, it helps sort of uncover that. So once, let's say I'm a user, I have filled out, let's say 3 to 5 form fields is all I fill out. Then I just, then if I am in the ICP or not, based on that, I sort of go to a calendar scheduler, correct? Now, based on that, for example, if in this scenario you could, and we used to do this earlier with, let's say, like a Calendly and a HubSpot form, right? Like, we would try to do it, but then you would always have to sort of refill in the email ID. It would not be very seamless. So it's not like you cannot do it, but it's just very difficult, and it's not a very good experience. And also there's still attribution issues that may take place after you sort of implement something like this. Hence, something like, I think moving to something like Track, Chili Viper is another one, one of the larger companies, I think is really helpful there, right? So uh, that's how we sort of look at it. And then the entire sort of, again, from a user perspective, right? When you do see the calendar, seeing time slots in your sort of time slot in your time zone is really, really helpful, right? So sort of that uh, is enabled through your round robin features, and sort of maybe mapping that, hey, this salesperson is in this region, so sort of map it out properly, right? So I think that experience itself from a user perspective is really good, and this also solves all the problems you spoke about. Your SDRs, uh, they don't have to, I'm not saying like junk is removed, but the basic filter that you could put has been put. And in some cases, in few cases, like, it could be like 80% of companies that you had to remove was an obvious few questions. So once you figure out what your qualifier question is, that reduces SDR sort of work, or maybe even the number of SDRs you need in your team quite significantly, right? Uh, and then so your salesperson, sales manager is happy, your SDRs are happier, your salespeople, I think, are just as happy as they were earlier. Your marketing team is happier because the drop-offs have reduced, so they can spend more for a lead, and so they're not getting bad that, hey, the leads aren't profitable. So the marketing team is happier, marketing managers are happier. So it sort of solves for a lot of different things, right? Like this experience.
Yeah,
Um,
absolutely.
awesome.
Also, one of the sorry, go
Mhm.
ahead.
Yeah, please.
No, I was saying one of the, like one of the criteria that we also seen people like route based on is based on the expertise, right? So, for example, like certain, like, let's say like a Series C company, Series D company. Now your sales team, it's not a function of necessarily the number of people in the sales team. It's a function of expertise. So let's say some people are experts at, so let's take in insurance, for example, you might have like health insurance, you might have like, mobile insurance, or like, sort of vehicle insurance and so on, as an example. You may have somebody who's an expert on one versus somebody on another. You want to route based on these expertise, as a simple example, right? And you can, rather than doing that later as an after the fact, and that's another important thing where your qualification is one thing, but you're also now, like, it's about the distribution that you're doing also based on these parameters, right? So that's just want to add that as well. So we see that happening.
Awesome. Yeah. So, are there any sort of best practices you've seen based on maybe any of the different things that we discussed, right? Um, maybe the form itself, about the field should be, maybe, uh, yeah. Have you seen any sort of setups that you really liked? Have you seen anything that people can maybe take inspiration from when they want to build this from for themselves?
I think the biggest inspiration, so I mean, the biggest inspiration is to make sure that you actually implement a process like that. I'm not like just pitching for it, but we actually see that it does make a world of a difference in terms of the actual impact. We obviously touch base upon these, right? But like I feel like that's one thing. But in terms of form fields, you definitely don't want to, like 4, 5. Like 5 is like, I would say, a little bit on the upper side. 4 fields is good, right? And try to use some automated ways if possible. But yeah, well, that's what we are seeing. We do see some companies offer like show like 7 and 8 fields, and
Yeah.
that just makes it harder. Some companies do like probably need it, but
Yeah.
I would say don't just be loose with the number of fields that you're asking. I think that's a very important thing. Um, and yeah.
Yeah. So some other flows that I have seen work pretty interestingly well, right? And we were discussing about this earlier, I think. One was the flow where you have a like a product demo automation software where a lot of companies are sort of saying that, hey, we want to go a step further and not just make it easier to book a demo, but you could, before you book a demo, you could see the product and maybe use it a bit, right? Or it could be a video, but also, for example, let's say a usable demo, right? And I personally think like something like a call sort of scheduler with like a conditional call scheduler, right, works really well in that flow. For example, if uh, the let's say if someone who's not very qualified, instead of sending them to the sales team or the SDR, even if someone is qualified, you could then send them a automated demo in the thank you page. So that way they just sort of are more qualified and better understood. They understand the product better when they come on there. Or for example, if you are not very confident about just sort of not letting people schedule calls, then you can send them to a demo, sort of have some messaging around that, hey, maybe we only work with, for example, we say on our uh, thank you page that, hey, we only work, it only makes sense to work with us when you have is spending at least $8,000 a month on ads. So we sort of call that out. So you could have some sort of a message with the demo, or for example, something like that, and then they could still maybe schedule a call with you. That could be one flow. Another flow could be that, hey, let's say someone has seen a product demo, right? And we recently looked at this. A lot of companies have started implementing those. So even if you have that, you could have someone see the product demo, and then sort of set up that, okay, only the right people are able to schedule a call after they've taken the self demo of the product. And that, I think, could also sort of then further reduce um, the process. For example, they've already taken a base demo, so maybe like the AE does not have to walk them through the entire product. And it just becomes that, hey, do you have questions for me? I'll just going to come here and answer questions and not walk you through the product at all. So just remove the entire demo part. That could be really interesting, right? Because if you're only doing that for the right people, you also have time to research that company and then show them specific things. Yeah. Sudhama?
Yeah, I think interesting, like, yeah, definitely. I think so. This is like the equivalent of, like in some ways, like the text version of that is like sharing a case study. Not exactly, but of course, here it's maybe potentially a little bit more interactive and so on, which is fine. I think there's a little bit of an old school thought here, which is also that, as I described, like different companies have different sort of deep pain points. So, for example, if like region-based routing is like a very key factor for you, and then you see the generic demo, and you're like, you may say, okay, do they have it or not? If that becomes like, I couldn't find it in the demo, then that's a bit.
That's a great perspective. Yeah, yeah, definitely. So yeah,
So that's
like
something to
people
think about.
shouldn't just jump on it. Yeah,
And not make conclusions, right? So what we like generally is that, uh, and this is something that came naturally, because even when we were doing the superhuman like version, I was doing demos. I've done like more than 465 sort of onboardings in the B2C version, which is very like rare in that sense, right? But I mean, not as many, but people do it. And like I realized that yes, you can talk a little bit about like this is what the product does, but really tailoring the questions to their pinpoints at first, and then tailoring your demo as per that, tends to have like much greater impact, and conversion. But yeah, I definitely think it's a good idea to give some, it's worth trying for sure, that like, here's few things. Does this give you that little bit of semblance that, hey, these problems are being solved? Because even a landing page ultimately gives you some information, and then you are still doing it like a demo call. So for sure, I think there's ways to improve that as well. Sorry, I
Um,
can't hear you.
oh no, yeah. Awesome. I think we're also up on time. So how about this, right? After this, we can maybe post maybe some of the flows that we discussed, maybe some information about what the form field should be, some information there, all the stats that you shared. Maybe we can sort of collect all of that into one place and share it with everyone who sort of seen this. Um, and yeah, how can people sort of find you if they have any other questions?
Sure. I
LinkedIn?
mean, yeah, LinkedIn, my profile, I can, maybe you can share it on the link, or I
Yeah.
can share it here as well. So LinkedIn and Sudhama at TheTrackApp.com. That's another way to just find me as well.
Yeah.
So let me just share
Awesome.
my LinkedIn profile here.
Yeah, so I think after this, we'll just sort of add your LinkedIn profile, your email ID in sort of the comments of the post and wherever this is, and the
Yeah.
description. Yeah, awesome. It was great having you, Sudhama. Thank you so much for
Thanks
doing
so much.
this.
Yeah. Thanks so much. Really fun. And hopefully we can do many more as well.
Oh yeah, and looking forward to sort of implementing this more often. Awesome.
Awesome.
Yeah.
All right.
Bye-bye.
Yeah. Thanks so much. Thanks, everyone.